Do you think that the book of Revelation is really scary? Do you think that it ruins lives? Do you think that folks get way too caught up in trying to figure out what it means and what it means for today? Well, if you've ever had questions about the book of Revelation and why it's so scary, I invite you to join us today as we hear a sermon about where the hope and the comfort is. Because trust me, it's in there.
Well, it is good to be with you here again, the second Sunday after Easter. As we say, it's the lowest attendance Sunday of the year because I think everybody's still partying that Jesus is out of the grave. But today we're taking a slight turn. We're not going to be spending so much time with Thomas. In fact, we're going to go to something that has even more doubt, something that's got even more shadows around it, something even scarier. And that's the book of Revelation. And the thing is, the book of Revelation is often thought of as the scariest book in the Bible. And part of the reason is that folks see it as a guidebook, a roadmap, a plan laid out on paper for what God has planned for the future. And we all want to know the future, don't we? We all want to study and analyze and figure out, where is this life going? And if you don't believe me on that, why do you think that guessing where the stock market is going to end up is such big business if folks don't care about what's coming in the future? Why do we analyze every trend? Is the economy going to go up? Is the economy going to go down? Is inflation going to rise? Gosh, I hope not. Is it going to go down? Fingers crossed. What is going to happen? We can't stand not knowing what is coming. And so, during our study of Revelation, we often think of the book of Revelation in those terms. But then we start really getting into what's happening in the book, and we see creatures that we never thought of. We hear of brimstone and fire, and we hear about battles and all of those things, and we go, are we sure this is in the Bible and not a Stephen King novel? Because some of the stuff that's in the book of Revelation, I swear only Stephen King could come up with. But this season after Easter, as we study this book, I want us to start thinking about the book of Revelation, not as a book of the future, not as a playbook for what's coming, but rather as a book for the here and the now. But also not as a book that is meant to bring fear and dread and pain, but rather as a book that is meant, in fact, to bring hope and to bring comfort to those who hear it. And one of the things that will help us to begin to understand the book of Revelation comes in this very first 8 verses that we heard today. We hear that John names this as a prophecy. Now, prophecy, that is a word that has so many misunderstandings, so many misconnotations. Again, we think of it as a prediction of what is coming in the future. But in fact, that's the furthest thing from what it actually is. Think about the prophets of the Old Testament. You know, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Obadiah, Amos, Micah. Anyone got any other names? Think about what they told the people. They told the people that they come not in their own name, but they come as the mouthpiece on behalf of the divine one. They come bringing the words that God has called them to bring to the people they were sent to. We misunderstand the word prophecy because we misunderstand what it's meant to do. It's not meant to bring a message about the future, what we should do in the future, what's coming in the future. But rather, it is a word that describes what God is calling for in the here and in the now. And so when John says that this is a prophecy, this book that I am written, this letter that I am putting together, what he is saying is, this is what God has called me to tell you now. This is what God has called me to send to you so that you might prepare yourselves. In essence, what I am telling you is something to bring you hope, not something to bring you fear. And a lot of that hope derives from how God describes himself. God describes himself as the Alpha and the Omega. Does anybody else here speak Greek? Well, I don't speak Greek, I read some Greek. But do you know what the Alpha and the Omega is? It's your ABCs, with a little twist. It's the first letter of the Greek alphabet and the last letter of the Greek alphabet. God describes himself as the God who was there in the beginning and who will be there in the end. Think about it. One of the very first verses in the Bible was, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God." Jesus and God were there in the very beginning. They were there when the world was but a formless void. They were there before there was light. And if God is there before anything came into being, we can most certainly trust that he will be there when everything is brought to its good and to its proper end. And so when we read the book of Revelation, when we study what God has said to us through John of Patmos, we begin to hear that God will be with us, not just at the beginning and not just the end, but in the very middle of it all. All of all of all. God is one who doesn't just show up when it begins and show up when it ends. God is the one who gets down and dirty into the midst of it. And that's what we heard last week on Easter. God loved us so much that he came to earth, he lived among us, he died in a human way and then rose again from the grave. If God were a God of just the beginning and just the end, none of that would have happened. This book of Revelation reminds us of that hope. And as we are reminded of that hope, as we are reminded of the fact that we are never left on our own, that no matter what the world throws at us, God is there with us, we are reminded too that we take that hope we are given and we go back out into the world who is so in need of a word of hope. You know, oftentimes people look at the signs and the wonders and all of the things happening in the book of Revelation, and they try to put it as an overlay on what is happening in our world today. They try to line up, well, this is when this is happening, this is when that is happening. Oh, and can't you see the end of the world is coming tomorrow? But the hope that we find in the book of Revelation, the comfort in knowing that God is there with us through it all, that is the true overlay that we are called to bring out into the world. We're not to line up the different events, but we are to line up the hope that comes purely from God. And we do that not only by worshiping together, not only by praying and doing all of the wonderful spiritual things we talked about during Lent, the loving the Lord our God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind. But we do that especially in this post-Easter world, in the way that we serve our neighbor, in the way that we love those who surround us as ourselves, as we live out that golden rule, doing unto others as we ourselves would have done unto us. For it's when we do those things, when we care for those who are most in need of care and love those most in need of love, even and especially when they are most unlovable, That is when God is working in us and through us. That is when the hope that is expressed in the book of Revelation comes into its fullness and comes into its reality. As we explore the book of Revelation over the next coming weeks, I invite you to listen for the hope, to listen for the comfort that is written there. I invite you to listen for where God is in the beginning and where God is in the end. And as we go through this together, I invite you to see where God is in the midst of everything and anything, in the here and in the now. And for a God who is with us through it all, we say, thanks be to God. Amen.
Hey, we hope you found that sermon inspirational. Now, if it was for you, we invite you to share it with others. But also, we invite you to like, comment below, and to subscribe to our channel. By subscribing, you help us get these messages out to more folks and help bring more inspiration into the world.